Hello, lovely people. This week I have the Paradine case for you. It's from 1947. This one's an Alfred Hitchcock from fairly, kind of early-ish in his career, I guess, at least in his US career. This one stars a few really good actors. It's got Gregory Peck and Todd, Charles Laughton, Ethel Barrymore, Louis Jourdan, and Alida Valli, amongst others as well. And it's the story of it's kind of a film noir court case film. So Madalena Paradine, played by Alida Valli, is a absolutely stunning woman, and she's charged with the murder of her much older husband. And Tony Keane is a solicitor, played by Gregory Peck, and he's a happily married man, but is brought onto the case, and he slowly becomes entangled and obsessed with this hypnotic woman, blinding him to what may be the truth about the case. His wife, whose name is Gay, she's played by Todd, can really only stand by and hope that if the case comes through as not guilty, that his obsession will end and they can sort of resume their marriage without the specter of the Paradine woman haunting their lives forever. It's kind of basically Anne Todd's character thinks that he won't be able to live with himself if it's a guilty verdict, because Madalena will be like hung, and so then she'll be like basically always on his mind forever, whereas if they can get the non-guilty verdict, then it's kind of an odd idea, but whatever. It's adapted from novel by Robert Hichens, I think that's how you pronounce it, and the film is set in London, but it was mostly it was kind of shot between some exteriors were in the UK and stuff like that, but mostly it's a US studio film. Hitchcock was under contract. He had a 7-year studio contract, which was a little bit stifling. So it's one of his studio films. So basically the plot kind of follows Keane as he kind of becomes enamored with this woman and can't really see that he may be being manipulated, and you're kind of left guessing a little bit. And there's Louis Jourdan is you might know him from Gigi or A Letter from an Unknown Woman. He's cast as a servant of the man that was killed, and King kind of is like, well, maybe this guy was her lover and maybe he did it and that kind of thing. Charles Laughton plays the judge. So yeah, I kind of don't want to spoil this one for you. I try not to spoil these films, even though they've been out for obviously a really long time, but yeah. So Anne Todd is probably the I was gonna say the glowing center of the film, but I mean, the actors in this are all really good actors, but it's not their best work, except for maybe Anne Todd, and Ethel Barrymore is quite good. I think she won an award for this film. A lot of Ethel Barrymore's a part was cut because the film was quite long. So Anne Todd plays the wife, and I don't know, it's funny to watch this now because in the context of the film it kind of makes sense, but I think if your solicitor husband was kind of obsessing over this other woman and he has some conversations and says things in front of her and stuff, I think you just leave. But obviously in 1947 that wasn't really as much of an option, and I guess the idea is that up until this point their marriage has been really strong. So she's loyal, and I guess she kind of believes that they have some kind of very real love and she's gonna wait the situation out. She kind of deserves better, but in the context of the film, she kind of comes across as genuine and loving and something kind of real and down to earth, as opposed to like Alida Valli's really sort of exotic model like face. They're both very beautiful women, but the way they're shot is quite different. So you kind of get the impression that it's almost like he's under a spell. So you can kind of see this film as maybe like a bit of a dark fairy tale. This is probably Todd's most famous role, but she worked extensively in theatre and film and different things. Her third husband was David Lane, who's a very famous director. And I find this kind of funny, but her second husband was her third husband's cousin. I mean, I guess that happens, but I don't know. It just seems so Hollywood to me. Alida Valli is a really interesting person. She's also in The Third Man with Orson Welles, but she's in Eyes Without a Face and Dario Argento's Suspiria later in her career, and those films are so good. If you get a chance to watch those, they're just so good. At one time, I guess I think it was in her 20s, not the 20s, but her 20s, she was considered the most beautiful woman in the world, and she was also a baroness. So one of those people that you just like, this person is so interesting. Her career towards the end was affected in the 50s because there was like the glitterati of Rome had this kind of crazy party kind of scene, and there was a woman's body was found on a beach after one of the parties, and it was kind of connected to parties that Valli had been at and all that kind of thing. And so there's all these kind of rumors that these people would have like crazy sex parties and all this kind of stuff. So that kind of wasn't great for her career. But anyway, so like I said, this is a Hitchcock film, and I find it kind of an interesting choice for him because there is a loyal wife who is happily married, and then there's this kind of exotic, just sort of amazingly beautiful, hypnotic woman, you know, and the husband becomes obsessed with her, right? Which is kind of Hitchcock's whole deal. Like, his wife was always loyal to him, always helped him in his work. I think she actually worked on the script for this movie. She was like a big support for him, and he was always obsessed with his main female star, and he would like micromanage her life, and you know, he was kind of crazy. So this kind of seems like an appropriate film for him to have chosen to adapt. This film wasn't like a big success. David O. Selznick kept interfering, and it was just like Hitchcock was he would storyboard his whole film, plan everything, and he wouldn't film anything extra. He would kind of know what he wanted, and it would all be planned out. And so his films didn't run over, and he stuck to the budget, and he was just very organized and had a real like visual mind as well. So he didn't really need that kind of micromanagement that maybe worked with other directors. But Selznick kept sort of sticking his oar in and asking for reshoots and just kind of messing up the schedule and stuff. So yeah, the film ended up running over budget. It almost cost as much as Gone with the Wind. So it was like insanely expensive. And the three, like Gregory, Peck, Alida Valli, and Louis Jordan were pushed on him by the studio system. He wanted different actors. So you can kind of feel it. Like, they're not badly shot. They're not doing like a bad job, but there's kind of just no, like, it just feels not quite wooden. That might be a little strong, but it's just not their best performances. And Hitchcock just felt that they were very miscast, and I kind of agree. Although he did like the actors personally, which I think, you know, maybe helps, I don't know. Yeah, so it was a very tough production, and luckily for Hitchcock, it was his last film under contract with the studio. So directors used to, well, directors, actors, writers, you would get a contract. Different actors had, different people had different things, but you could be signed on to like a 7-movie deal, and you didn't really have much choice or control. And sometimes the studio would be like, you're doing this film with these actors and that's it. So you kind of, it was kind of a production line, and it could be very crushing to an artistic temperament. And sometimes it ruined careers, because the studio head could give you a film, that didn't play to your strengths, and or could give you something and make you be typecast and then kind of toss you aside, so it wasn't fun for creative people. And Hitchcock was pretty happy to leave, I think. He did try a few innovations with this film. With the courtroom scenes, he was able to do long takes by filming 4 different actors at once with 4 different cameras. So there's like a long take, but he could cut between them. So that was kind of a new idea at the time. He also filmed a long scene that was filmed to look like a single take, as 2 of the characters like entered the court building and sort of went up some stairs and stuff. But it was cut from the film, because Selznick was just like, oh, this just slows down the action, it has to go. So obviously some things had to be cut. The film was about 3 hours long when Hitchcock was finished with it. Selznick cut it down, and then he cut it down again. And I mean, it's not an incoherent film, and I think 3 hours is a bit long for a courtroom film, but it's interesting because Hitchcock is such a good director. You kind of wonder what his version would have been like, but the longer cuts have been lost. So the version we have is the version we have. The film was absolutely a box office failure. The budget was so inflated, and it just could only make back half of its budget. And it had extensive cuts, and yeah, I mean, it's not a bad sort of afternoon watch, if you know what I mean, like where you just want to put something on in the afternoon and watch a little black and white film. But it does feel a little flat or a little wooden, other than Todd and some of the side characters. But the sets are quite lavish and expensive. They spent a lot of money recreating courtrooms and things like that. It's quite lavish. The interiors in the houses are really nice as well. You get a sense of the time period, which is fun. I kind of felt like the whole thing had a bit of a like cozy feel because of the wood and the wainscoting and sort of men talking by the fire about the case and that kind of thing. But the scenes with Valli in jail are really kind of juxtaposed to that. It's almost like otherworldly. There's images of her face and it almost looks like wax. Like she's just so beautifully framed and shot, and like she has no pores. Like her skin is perfect, and she really is amazing looking. So those are they're really cool. They're kind of unearthly. She's got this sort of prison bars and concrete walls and things, and it just creates a sense that when he's in a space with her, it's so different to the real world. Yeah, so she's definitely kind of framed as being a bit otherworldly at times. Yeah, which kind of adds something to the whole, hypnotic atmosphere. Yeah, it's a film that's kind of worth watching if you're a Hitchcock fan, even though it's not his strongest work. And I think for me, it's kind of one of the more forgotten ones compared to like the bigger ones, especially something like Psycho or whatever. It's not on that level. But yeah, it reminded me a lot of Witness for the Prosecution, which is a really similar That's an Agatha Christie adaptation, and it also has Charles Laughton in it, but they had Marlene Dietrich as kind of similar character to Alida Valli in this, the kind of woman where you're like, well, did she do it or did she not do it? And the lawyer's kind of falling for her, but you're not sure if she's manipulating him or not. And then there's this kind of zing, like, twist ending with witness for the prosecution, which is quite fun. So that is a much more successful film of the same sort of genre and style. Yeah, I just kind of think it's funny because it's in these kinds of films, sometimes there's this like beautiful foreign exotic woman and you like, it's like she just can't be trusted. Like, what is her agenda? I say a lot. So yeah, I guess the last little tidbit with this movie is the cameo. Hitchcock makes a little cameo in all of his films, which is fun to look out for. And in this one, he gets off a train with a cello. So you gotta, luckily that didn't get cut. So that's the Paradine case. It's kind of a femme fatale courtroom noir thing. Not Hitchcock's best work, but like a fun little afternoon watch. Thanks for watching.